Welcome to Encroachment Sports Talk. It's that time of the year. It's March, and we all know that means March Madness. So we're getting close. And I think right now what we're going to talk about today is some of those teams who are squarely on the bubble. We're going to have some hot takes on which of those bubble teams we think are in and which ones we think are out. So we're going to get started. Chris, what bubble team do you think is going to stamp their ticket?
Well, again, grand scheme of things, March Madness. This is really cool. This kind of is a bridge before the NBA playoffs. So it's a really exciting time of year. And we just, we're out of football, which I'm still mourning. But we're moving into March Madness and pretty excited about that. So there are three teams. We could talk about three teams that we think are that are on the bubble, but in at this point. Things can change because remember, we've got not only some regular season games this last week as regular season games this weekend actually, but then you got the conference tournament, so things can change. So that's a big caveat, right? So one I've got in is Colorado, and primarily because their net is 30. They have 2 quad 1 wins. They're 21-9. The Pac-12 is not great this year. They just beat Oregon on the road, 79-75. I think they're in.
Yeah, I actually had Colorado as well. I'm not impressed with their strength of schedule and only the 2 quad wins. If you compare them, quad 1 wins, if you compare them with other bubble teams, that's not the most impressive.
Right.
But they, I think the selection committee looks at recency, and they've won their last 5 games and they've gone 10-4 over their last 14. So I think they're likely to be the 3rd team in out of the Pac-12. So I like them as well.
How about you? What do you think?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, what do you think? What about you? You got another team that you think?
Yeah, the other team I think will make it in is Nebraska. They have a net rating of 42, 21-9 record, 3-7 quad 1. Again, they're all like most of the teams are. That's why they're on the bubble. They're not the greatest against quad 1. 11-8 in conference, which in Colorado was 12-7. I think that conference record is important too. I think having a sub 500 or 500 conference record is really questionable because it's not like there's much more parity in the conferences this year. There's no like powerhouse conferences. So if you can't even get past half of the teams in your conference, but Nebraska's 11-8 in conference, and they finish off at Michigan. Michigan's just awful. I think the football team sold their soul to the devil. For all of.
I was gonna say, I knew you had to throw a barb in there somewhere.
Yeah, so it's for cheating in football. They're going to penalize you in every other sport. And Nebraska, we talk about recency. They won 5 out of the last 6, soon to be 6 out of their last 7. So I like them to make it in.
Yeah.
Who else you got?
So the one I've got, and this one you might debate a little bit because they do have their conference record is not it's sub 500 right now, and that's my one big wart with them. But it's Mississippi State, the SEC. The SEC is down a little bit. There are a lot of these power conferences, as you mentioned, are down a little bit this year. They're 19-11. Net is 39. 3 quad 1 wins. And they beat, I think what really pushed them over into the first 4 in would be they beat South Carolina, or if they beat South Carolina today, who's ranked number 17th, that'll push them for sure in. So it's a big game for them. But that 3 quad 1 wins is a big deal. And but I don't like their conference record. It's 8-9, which is never good.
Yeah, I think I'm fine with that call because the SEC is a decent conference, and I'm just leaving them on the bubble. I think, the rest of their resume will decide their fate.
Yes.
You got any other teams you like making it in?
Yeah. Are we going to get to the one that we really want to talk about, Mark? Come on now. Mark and I, just for some background, Mark and I are both from New Mexico originally, so we are big Lobos fans. Mark is we go to the pit. Literally decades of following this team. This team is about as good as it's been for us for quite a while. So I think they're in. Now let's talk about their record. You were at the game. So one of their biggest warts is what they just did, which you saw in person, which was they lost to Air Force at home, which is almost unacceptable. That's a quad 4 team, by the way.
Yeah.
So, but they're 22-8. Their net is 30. They have 2 quad 1 wins. Why don't you talk a little bit about them? Because they got a couple roads to get in. I still think because the Mountain West, from a historical perspective, is as deep and as powerful as it's been since I can remember, at least in the last couple decades. You've got 6. I think we were sharing some information yesterday. You've got 6 teams in there that are either going to go to the NCAA or the NIT for sure. So,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, I think I think that's one of the strikes against the Lobos. I think New Mexico, and this is me just trying to manage my expectations. If I kind of look at them on paper, I probably put them in, but knowing them and knowing where they're going to go the rest of this tournament or the rest of the season, I see them drawing being on the outside looking in. Had they beat Air Force, they would be a lock. That's their only bad loss. I believe every other loss was to a tournament team.
Yep.
Here's the one question you have to ask yourself. There are actually 7 teams from that conference who have a stake at going to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
Do you really believe that the selection committee is going to take 7 teams from the Mountain West?
No, there's no. I think they're going to take a max 4, right? And
right. And so who's going to be on the outside for whatever reason? Colorado State keeps, even though they've got so I think it might come down to Colorado State versus New Mexico. I think UNLV has really come on and has earned a spot. Yeah. Despite, because they, again, recency, they're just really playing lights out.
Yep.
I think New Mexico plays at Utah State today. A win and they're in. I just don't see that happening. I think, we could talk about the New Mexico Lobos all day, but I think they're an undisciplined team. Early in the season, I loved their talent. I thought they were a senior led by senior guards, which is a recipe for success in the tournament. Yeah. But one of those senior guards is Eddie House's kid, Jalen House, who's never seen a shot he didn't like. And he thinks he's his dad. He cannot shoot. He shoots 3 for 15 every game and shoots them out of every big game. And
I mentioned the other guard because he's got his own works too, Mashburn. So he can go cold. He can go cold for 3 like you wouldn't believe. I mean,
Mashburn, unfortunately, last year he was a much better mid-range shooter. For whatever reason, his shot has been off, but he's smarter. If he's not falling, he's not going to force it. Yeah. Jalen House does not have that filter where he realizes, oh, I'm off, let me create for my teammates. Right. And they have plenty of teammates who can score, and that's all House has to do. And that's why I feel like it's kind of coaching where the coach doesn't have control over his players, and he's letting this one senior team who he had loyalty to, he came with him when he started the program in New Mexico, and I just think he doesn't have control, and that's what actually cost them in the Air Force game is just some bad coaching decisions. And that's my knock on them. I think they're squarely on the bubble, but I think they're going to lose to Utah State, and then if they were to maybe make it to the conference tournament semis, I think they would be in. And that second round matchup in the conference tournament against either UNLV or Nevada in the home state of Nevada will be what decides whether they get in. And again, because they'll be playing one of those 2 teams more than likely, I see them getting knocked out. But we'll see.
Well, the good news is with you is you're never really a homer. I mean, and you protect your expectations because you always kind of, so I agree with you. I mean, I'm just trying to be a little bit more upbeat and positive about the Lobos. I mean, this is the best team we've had for a while. This is the closest we've been to the tournament in a while.
Yeah, I mean, again, it depends. They have one of the best net ratings, and it's going to go up even with the loss at Utah State because Utah State's got a strong net rating. But recency, they've been kind of cold lately, and we'll see. I just and again, you take 7 teams from the tournament. I guess we got to keep an eye on Colorado State too, because I think they could take 6.
Yeah, so. You're right. It's possible. One last thing, I think you really said something insightful there, and I hadn't thought about it before, but the fact that Mashburn and House both have celebrity, really proven dads, both played in the NBA. I think Patino may defer to him a little bit more than he would otherwise. Yeah. And it's unfortunate because that's cost him, as you said, some really important games.
Yeah, because their best player by far is Donovan Dent, and
Right,
he's also playing guard. And he doesn't force his shot. He drives a lot. Jalen House just needs to be an intelligent basketball player, and he's not.
right.
He just isn't. There was one game this year, they were winning by 15 at the end of the first half. They had the ball and the shot clock was off. And he took the shot at 10 seconds to go. The other team got the rebound, made it 3, and it was a 12-point game. I mean, not a big deal, but who shoots with 10 seconds to go when you have the shot clock in your hand? Shoot with 5,
Right.
so that if you get an offensive rebound, there's chance for a putback, but not 10.
Right.
It's simple. It's basketball 101.
Yeah.
And Jalen House doesn't get it. And he's not learning. He's regressing every year since he's been with New Mexico.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's how I see it. I think
I think there's a lot of truth to that, and it's unfortunate because again, last year both those guards were, I mean, on the ascendancy, if you will, versus still
he's a fabulous defender. He's just not smart. He doesn't know how he can affect winning.
Right.
His defense affects winning. He'll then force a turnover, and because he's the one who forced the turnover, he feels entitled to take a quick shot.
Right.
That's not always the case. Pull it out, set your offense.
Right.
He's like 5'9". I mean, they say he's 6'1" or whatever, but he's not. He's under 6 feet, and he can't force the issue against people. That's not his game. He also has the ugliest looking 3-point shot you've ever seen. I don't know why his dad didn't teach him how to shoot, but and why take those shots? You're not entitled to a shot just because your defense gave your team an extra possession. Anyway, I got to stop. We could talk all day about Jalen House, but
it's okay. It's near and dear to our heart. So understand. So let's go on to the next one, which is 3 teams you think are out but are on the bubble right now.
Yeah, I think Utah is on the bubble, and I don't see it happening. Utah is 18-12. 9-10 in a weak Pac-12 conference with a game at Oregon coming. It might put them at 9-11. I know Oregon's not setting the house on fire, so that game's kind of a toss-up, but you could very easily see them losing that game. 9-11. They had a good preseason with wins over St. Mary's and BYU, but let's look recently. They're 3-5 over the last 8 games, and again 9-12 in the Pac-12, and I just don't see it happening for Utah.
Yeah, that's a good one. I have another one from this one from the ACC, and it's UVA, Virginia. They're 21-9. Their net is 50, 2 quad wins, but they were just smashed by Duke, 73-48. It wasn't even competitive. Wow. And although they're 12-7 in the conference, which you think in a typical ACC year, 12-7 in the conference, they're an automatic in, right? That ACC is like supposed to be the #1 conference, but it is much more weak and not the same ACC we're used to. So I don't think they make it, but we'll see.
Yeah, they've also lost. Let's see here. They've lost 4 out of the last 6.
Yeah,
they had a really nice winning streak prior to that.
They did. Yeah,
it didn't include games against any ranked teams, but yeah, well, that's a good call. We'll see that 4-6, that recency. And I think that's what has me worried about New Mexico with the recent loss to Air Force.
Well, you remember when the tournament director, he gets out and he talks after the selection, and he does bring up, hey, look, we're going to take the teams that are playing well in a recent period of time, all things equal. But I just don't see this ACC as the typical ACC. So, and to be smashed by Duke by 30 points almost, come on now.
Yeah, good call. Yeah. I've got Iowa not making it in. They're 18-12, net rating of 57, 3-8 against quad 1, 10-9 in conference with their next game today is against number 12 Illinois. So that they might be 10-10 in conference. The Big Ten is really it's not that great this year either. Yeah. So I see Iowa on the outside looking in.
What are your feelings on? Because I'm conflicted on this one. This is a Big Ten program, a Northwestern. So their net is not great at 52. They're 20-10. They're real positive. They have 5 quad 1 wins, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And they're 11-8 in the conference, but again, this isn't. And they just beat Iowa and Michigan State, so they're hot and they're beating good teams. But again, the Big Ten is weaker. than normal, and I'm just conflicted about that. That 5 quad one wins is pretty darn positive, but their net is
Yeah, and a tough strength of schedule, 44th strength of schedule. I think, depending on if they don't lay an egg in the conference tournament, I think they may be in. They played Minnesota here today.
Yep.
They lose that game. They're still squarely on the bubble, but I think if you're a Northwestern fan, I'd feel somewhat confident.
Yep. Yep. The 5 quad wins, right, is the big positive for them, right?
Yep. Good strength of schedule.
Yeah, and then Pitt is the other one that I was looking at in the ACC. They're on the bubble, 2 quad wins, net of 43, 20 and 10. But again, the ACC's down. I don't know that, again, I think they've been playing okay basketball recently, but it's just hard to say. It's like in the ACC used to be able to take 6 teams for sure, 6 or 7 teams for sure. It's not that way this year. So I don't know what your feelings are on Pittsburgh.
Still on the bubble. They didn't jump out at me. I do like that they only have 2 losses out of their like last 9 games or 10. I think they're 8-2, and so that recency is pretty good. They did beat number 21 Virginia at the time, although you have questions about them. Still on the bubble, but again, I can't rule them out. I think they have a good shot. Here's an interesting one that I think is out, but because of their history, I have Villanova. They're 17-13 overall. They've had a very tough strength of schedule. A net rating of 31, 4 quad one victories, but they also, their last game is against a pretty good Creighton team, so they could be 10-10 in conference, 17-14.
Yeah.
Does that get you in? They've lost 5 of over their last 14 games, they're 6-8.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Villanova?
Yeah, well, that's a good. That's one of those programs that if they have to flip a coin, the coin is always going to go Villanova's way, just because it's got a pedigree, right?
Yeah.
And the coach and everything else. So, but yeah, the big thing with them is, just the history with them. And how many quad wins do they have?
They have 4. They're 4-8.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good.
Frankly, we all know this Villanova team could make it to the Sweet 16. They've just got that kind of pedigree. Right. But is it the NCAA selection committee's purview to look at past history, or do you have to judge it on this year,
Right. Well, I would tell you it should be this year, but I think that everyone has these subliminal biases with respect to that program, right? So, I mean, the sad part is if it's Villanova in New Mexico, and let's say Villanova, they're going to take Villanova. It's crazy, but it's true.
Yeah. I mean, here's one perspective I've always had. Every team in the nation is in the NCAA tournament. It's just double elimination for 64 of them, or 68, whatever. 68, because starting next week with the conference tournament, you run the table, you win the national title.
Yep.
Right. So if you don't make it in, it's your fault. Right. Being on the bubble, I mean, it's kind of like, now the college football has gone to 12 teams. You're going to have the 13th team bitching and moaning about how they should have been in. Right?
Instead of the 5th. Right.
Yeah. So if you're on the bubble, you're not going to, you didn't deserve, you're not going to do damage. You could, but you're not likely to do damage in the tournament. So, I'm not going to whine if New Mexico is not in, but it'd be a nice thing. It's nice for the program, I think. But
it'd be nice for the program. And again, as you said, there's been some loyalty there to those seniors. And I got mixed emotions on Pitino personally, as you do, but we haven't been. When was the last time the Lobos were in the big dance? I don't hear I'm gonna jinx them, that.
It was 2014. It was the holdover from Steve Alford. His replacement, what's his name? His sidekick.
The guy with the blonde hair. I forgot what his name is.
Blondish gray. Neil.
Okay, yeah.
His son played for him. He was still coaching a team led by Cameron Bairstow and Tony Snell, and so it was a holdover. And then they got bounced in the first round as a 5 seed to number 12 Stanford.
Okay. Well, the good news is we got beat one time. My favorite was being run by Harvard when we had the really good team, and then Stanford beat us. It's crazy. Do you remember being bounced by Harvard? I mean, that's the team I thought that could go.
Yeah, back-to-back years, they lost to Harvard, and then Alfred left, and the next year they still had a good team, same players, different coach, when they got bounced by another academically oriented program. So I was hoping we could play like Kentucky or some. Sorry, Kentucky fans. You know, some of you
You're gonna
probably
make some friends here at high places.
some of you probably secured decent jobs after attending that prestigious institution. But I was joking that we should play a team that's not very smart.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, because for whatever reason, those it was back-to-back years we got bounced by those kind of schools. So.
Anyway, any other thoughts that you have on?
No, this exciting. Like today, I'll be watching a lot of college ball because this is the last season game for a lot of these programs, and a lot of them have opportunities to either improve their resume or blow their resume up. Yeah. And so, like I said, New Mexico wins today. It's a long shot, but wins today, they're in. So let's hope for good things. Yeah.
I totally agree. I'm going to be watching all the bubble teams and rooting for a bunch of losses by bubble teams.
Yeah, there you go. That's right.
Because the more the rest of the field weakens, the more your team looks better. So
absolutely.
Anyway, great show as always, and we'll catch up again next time.
Yeah, sounds good.